Okay, I want to start today by sharing something very important. When I first moved to Europe, I experienced a very deep shock. I looked around and I realized that the societal standards for immigrants, especially those of us from the African diaspora, naturally set incredibly very low. And from observation, it seemed like the tougher the economy of the country, the lower those expectations drop. This is the common stereotype about making it in the West as an immigrant. For many people, the script goes like this: be grateful to be here, lower your expectations, take what you can get. Survivor mode is the default setting, and maybe if you're lucky, your kids can have it better, can make it better. And while it is true that systems could be very limiting, there's a darker truth we have to admit. Many of us have internalized this particular stereotype. It becomes an active way of thinking. We decide that excellence is not for us. Excellence isn't for us. We decide that aiming high is for the originals. That's the people who were born here, the people who we assume already have their lives figured out, those with maybe a clearer path and substantial savings in their name to start life with, which already kind of defeats the chances of our children before they even start. These are the chains we need to break. These are the kind of stereotypes that we need to get rid of. Welcome back to Future Foundations. We recently talked about becoming the CEO of your life, and today we'll take it a little deeper than wealth and productivity itself. So today we are asking, who is the person actually sitting in the chair? Today is about the identity shift. I want us to talk about outgrowing the environment that shaped you, breaking the generational chains of survivor mode, and figuring out who you actually are beyond your origin. In other words, how do you outgrow the default script that your origin handed to you without losing who you actually are? Let's get into it. Now, I've seen firsthand how the standards for immigrants were set too low, and I'm not just talking about Europe here. It's even worse in countries with lower economies. The expectations are so minimal that people celebrate just getting by. And because of those low expectations, so many ambitious first generation builders fall behind. They fall into the survival trap. You see it everywhere. Brilliant people working themselves to the bone 40 years just to pay rent and bills. And oftentimes we convince ourselves that our kids will understand the environment better than we do, so they'll be the ones to really, really succeed. This means we've lost the drive to aim high and push for truly great achievements. So many immigrants have internalized this so deeply that it becomes a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. We get stuck in survival mode nearly all our lives. And what do? We leave the expectation of greater achievements to our kids. And even then, some of us believe that our kids won't go that far because we assume that because we weren't born in a specific environment or with a particular passport category or at least a certain amount in your bank account, our role is just to be the bridge. But in doing that, we are capping our own excellence. These are the chains we absolutely need to break when it comes to our identity perspectives. For immigrants specifically, the script is even more rigid. It gets like this: go to a new country, find any job, send money back home, find your way to survive, repeat until retirement. And if you're lucky, your kids are going to break that cycle. But what if you don't want to wait for your kids? What if you want to break the cycle yourself? That's where the identity shift begins. You have to recognize the script. You have to see it for yourself for what it is. It's a man-made box that you've unconsciously agreed to stay inside. And then you have to decide, am I going to live inside this box or am I going to step out of it? You see, I made a very conscious decision when I moved that I was going to break this barrier. I consciously refused to look like a beggar. And I say this deliberately. I use this word deliberately because it's a stereotype that many people try to normalize. I decided that I wasn't going to look for permission to be successful, but instead I decided I wanted to make a good living for myself and live entirely apart from these default scripts. I needed my life to feel very different. But I want to be clear about something. This was never about faking it. In a previous conversation, we talked a lot about the trap of looking rich and buying things just to impress people you don't even like. So for me, this was never about faking it. But then I wasn't doing it to impress anyone. I was doing it out of pure intentionality. See, faking it is a performance for an audience. Intentionality is about setting a standard for yourself and growing into it. I didn't want to look rich. I wanted to be a person whose standards were not dictated by my zip code or the people that surrounded me. Therefore, I let my internal standards shape my decisions so I could build a life of intentional success. But here's where it gets difficult. How do you balance staying true to yourself with becoming someone new? If you're raised in an environment of scarcity, identity naturally wraps around survival. You don't dream about building wealth, you dream about not being broke. You don't think about creating impact. You think about not being left behind. And this script is so powerful because it's invisible. You don't even realize you're operating from it. It just feels like reality. It feels like just how things are, like the normal. And so when you're trying to break out of your origin story, it's very tempting to look around at the successful people in your new environment and just try to mimic them. You think you need to overhaul your entire personality to fit into the corporate boardroom or the wealthy neighborhood. I recently read an article about a writer who spent a decade to improve his life. He finally had a breakthrough when he realized that the better version of himself was just a polished copy of someone else. He had been running away from his true self because he thought his origins were a problem to be managed. Now, listen to me. Changing your circumstances does not require a change of your true identity. These things can actually coexist. Life is a constant evolution. You don't need to abandon your roots or perform a fake persona. You just need to take your raw, authentic self and give it the tools to thrive in bigger rooms. Your origin is your starting point and not your ceiling. So you must never feel limited by that at all. Now, there's something that no one might ever tell you about outgrowing your origin. It's lonely. When you decide to aim higher and raise your standards, you are not just changing your behavior, you are challenging the identity of everyone around you who is still living by the default script, by the old script. Your family might not understand why you are investing in a cause instead of sending that extra cash home. Your old friends might feel like you've changed. And of course, they are right. You've actually changed. But not because you think you're better than them. It's because you're trying to be the better version of yourself that would have stayed stuck and remained on one spot. And then there's guilt. You feel it when you're the first among your peers or the first in your family to break a standard or to pursue something bigger. You feel it when you start spending money differently, maybe on your growth or investing in yourself. You feel it when you realize you don't fit in the same rooms anymore. The conversations that used to feel very normal to you, they now feel very limiting. The kind of mindsets that used to be just how we think now feels like they are chains to you. But you see, over time, I've learned that guilt is often just the price of growth. It's the emotional cost of expansion. And if you let that guilt stop you, you spend your entire life trying to fit into a box that is too small for who you're becoming. You don't lose your identity when you grow. You expand it. You take the core of who you are, your values, your experiences, your perspectives, and you learn to express it in your new environments. And so by doing this, you are proving to yourself that you're not just a survivor, but a builder. So how do we actually make this identity shift? How do you grow or expand your identity from the person you were to the person you're becoming? It's not a massive overnight epiphany. To navigate life and actually get to where I wanted to be, I had to intentionally chase the path I desired instead of focusing on survival. And I won't lie to you, it was very painful. It was a very painful experience. It required stepping away from my comfort zone, but that was the price to pay. I started focusing on the easier, smaller things I needed to do today that will make tomorrow better for me. The simple way to think about it is the same way the author of the book Atomic Habits, that's James Clear, the way he puts it. He says the best way to change your identity is by casting votes with your actions. That means every single action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. You don't have to feel like a massive success right now. For example, every time you choose to read a book or read a research paper instead of maybe scrolling on your phone, you're casting a vote for the identity of a learner. Every time you refuse to accept a low standard set for you, you're casting a vote for a leader. You don't have to feel like a success yet. You just need to look at your daily actions and ask, who am I voting for today? Start asking yourself, what kind of person am I becoming? And then you cast your votes over small daily wins that over time change who you are, change the kind of person you become. Personally, I didn't stop being who I am when I decided to raise my standards. I just decided that my identity wasn't going to be limited by where I came from. My origin was the starting point and not the ceiling. Of course, I'm still evolving today. I'm still making those small, big sacrifices that make a real difference in my life. I have a friend who is a big advocate for continuous learning. She's in her 40s. And unlike so many people who completely give up on growth in their early 30s, she's the one person I know that would never miss an opportunity to learn something new when she can. That single habit of continuous evolution has changed her trajectory several times over and over. She's not faking success, but actually living it. And I see that she's consistently routing for a more capable version of herself. I'm so keen on this part of continuous evolution because in the end, it's not just about us, it's about the sensitization we need to give to the younger generation who are looking up to us as role models. If they watch us accept low standards, they'll inherit those standards as their normal. But then if they watch us step out of our comfort zones, if they watch us remain deeply authentic while navigating the honest levels of success globally, we give them permission to do exactly the same thing. So don't wait for your kids to build a dream. Build it now so that they have a foundation to stand on. Show them that the chains were never real. It starts with a decision to raise your standards, a decision to refuse the default script, a decision to build an identity that isn't limited by where you started. This week, I would like you to take one small action and identify one vote that you can cast for the person that the future you would like to become. And remember, your origin is a fact, but it's not a fate. You were never meant to fit into that box. You were meant to break it open. This is Future Foundations. Expand your identity and everything else will follow.